Today we're going to be discussing the concept of surveillance capitalism. Most of us know that we're being tracked by algorithms all the time. That's happening to me while I write this script, record it, and create the video. It's happening to you as you watch it. But let's consider some of the effects and implications of this ever-present surveillance. First of all, what is surveillance capitalism, and how does it differ from traditional capitalism? Surveillance capitalism, a term coined by Shoshana Zuboff, describes a new economic order where companies collect and monetize personal data without users' full knowledge or consent. Basically, it's a form of capitalism where human experience is the raw material for profit. In traditional capitalism, the focus is on producing and selling goods and services. However, surveillance capitalism treats personal data as a commodity to be extracted, analyzed, and sold. This data includes everything from your browsing history and location data to your social media interactions and even your emotions. In traditional capitalism, the consumer is a customer who buys goods or services. In surveillance capitalism, the consumer becomes the product. Your attention, your preferences, and your predicted future behavior are the commodities being sold to advertisers and other third parties. Most of us realize that we're being tracked by algorithms all the time, thanks to our nearly ubiquitous phone. But the extent of it can be kind of scary sometimes. For example, one day I was having a conversation with my wife about a particular household product. Right afterward, we both got ads for it, although our only mention of it was during that conversation. No searches for it were done prior. Have you ever had something like that happen to you? Let me know in the comments. This leads us into the idea of transparency and consent. Traditional capitalism relies on a degree of transparency and consumer choice. You decide whether to buy a product or not. Surveillance capitalism, however, often operates in the shadows. Data is collected through complex tracking mechanisms, cookies, and algorithms, often without users fully understanding how their information is being used. This affects the power dynamics of consumer purchasing. Traditional capitalism involves a more balanced power dynamic between consumers and businesses. Consumers can choose to buy or not buy products, influencing the market. In surveillance capitalism, the power dynamic is skewed towards corporations who control the data and the algorithms that shape our online experiences. For example, consider this analogy. Imagine a farmer who grows and sells apples. He uses advertising, like a roadside sign or an ad, in a shopping mailer. That's traditional capitalism. Now imagine a company that installs hidden cameras in your home to observe your behavior, analyzes that data to predict what you'll want to eat, and then sells that information to food companies. That's surveillance capitalism. This concept of the two techs in surveillance capitalism, as articulated by Zuboff, highlights the inherent asymmetry and lack of transparency in this economic model. It essentially refers to two distinct experiences occurring simultaneously. First, there's the text of the user. This is the experience of individuals as they interact with digital platforms and services. Users engage with these platforms for various reasons: to connect with friends, access information, or be entertained. They are often unaware of the extent of data collection happening in the background. Second, there's the text of surveillance capitalism. This is the hidden layer of data extraction and analysis that occurs alongside the user's experience. Companies like Google and Facebook track user behavior, analyze this data to create detailed profiles, and use these profiles for targeted advertising, behavioral prediction, and even influencing user actions. There's a disparity between these two texts, which creates an inherent power imbalance. While users are focused on their immediate online experience, surveillance capitalists are operating on a different plane, extracting value from their every click, scroll, and interaction. Therefore, this disparity creates an imbalance where users are often unaware of how their data is being used and lack meaningful control over its collection and exploitation. Think of it like this. Imagine you're walking down the street enjoying the scenery and window shopping. That's your text. Unbeknownst to you, there are hidden cameras tracking your every move, analyzing your gait, your gaze, and your shopping habits. This data is then used to predict your future behavior and target you with personalized advertisements. That's the text of surveillance capitalism. One sci-fi example of this is from the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise's character is shown personalized ads based on scans of his eyes while walking around. This two-text concept illustrates several fundamental ethical problems with surveillance capitalism. First is a lack of transparency. Users are not fully informed about the extent of data collection and how their data is being used. Then there's asymmetrical power, where companies have significant power to extract, analyze, and monetize user data without meaningful consent. After all, who really reads those terms of service agreements? And there's an erosion of autonomy in that users' online experiences are shaped and manipulated by algorithms designed to maximize data extraction and profit. All this data collection creates what's known as surplus data, the extra information collected by companies that goes beyond what is strictly necessary to provide a service or product to the user. It's the excess data gathered about individuals and their behaviors that is not essential for the core functionality of the platform or service being used. For example, your address and payment method are necessary data, while things like your browsing history on a website, your location data while using an app, your likes and interactions on social media, or even the way you scroll and interact with content are considered surplus data. So, how does the collection of seemingly insignificant surplus data contribute to the power of surveillance capitalism? While individually these data points may seem trivial, their aggregation and analysis, especially by machine learning algorithms, reveal intricate patterns of behavior, enabling unprecedented levels of prediction and manipulation. Here's how it works. First, let's consider the collection of vast amounts of data that go beyond what's necessary for providing a service. It can be rather shallow, like browsing history on a site or your location data. Most people are okay with seeing recently viewed items and such, as long as there's a way to enable and disable it. Where it gets concerning for most people is when this data collection goes beyond a site or app and tracks things, like your location, social media activity, and even sensor data from your phone's accelerometer, gyroscope, and even microphone. This is where it can get really intrusive. While each individual data point might seem inconsequential, their aggregation and analysis reveal intricate patterns of behavior, preferences, and even vulnerabilities. Advanced AI algorithms can identify correlations and predict future actions with surprising accuracy. For example, seemingly unrelated data points like your online shopping habits, your social media posts, and your location data can be combined to predict things such as your likelihood of buying a house or even developing a medical condition. The ability to predict future behavior is the key to the power of surveillance capitalism. As I mentioned earlier, there's targeted advertising where personalized ads that are more likely to influence your purchasing decisions are delivered to you. More subtle are behavioral manipulations, where you're nudged towards specific actions, like spending more time on a platform or voting a certain way. One more insidious practice is price discrimination, where someone is charged a different price based on their predicted willingness to purchase and ability to pay. Basically, this collection and analysis of surplus data erodes user control and autonomy. Individuals become unwitting participants in a system where their every move is tracked, analyzed, and monetized. This leads to a loss of privacy, giving you the feeling that you're constantly being watched and analyzed and being influenced and nudged without your conscious awareness. The collection of this, on the surface, seemingly insignificant surplus data is the lifeblood of surveillance capitalism. By aggregating and analyzing this data, companies gain unprecedented power to predict and manipulate behavior, influencing our choices and actions. But why do people allow this loss of privacy and manipulation? This disconnect between people's stated concerns about privacy and their actual online behavior is what's known as the privacy paradox. Essentially, people say they value privacy, but often act in ways that contradict this belief. They readily share personal information on social media, use apps that track their location, and agree to lengthy privacy policies without reading them. The privacy paradox plays right into the hands of surveillance capitalists. It allows them to collect vast amounts of data with little resistance, even when users express concerns about privacy. This happens due to several factors. Many people are unaware of the extent of data collection and how their information is being used. They may not realize that seemingly innocuous actions, like liking a post or using a free app, can contribute to a detailed profile about them. Next, the services offered by surveillance capitalists are often highly convenient and offer tangible benefits. People are willing to trade some privacy for the convenience of social media, personalized recommendations, and other free online services. Also, there's the cost of privacy. Protecting privacy can require effort, such as reading privacy policies, adjusting settings, or using alternative services. Many people find these steps inconvenient and opt for the easier path, even if it means sacrificing some privacy. Then there's social pressure. Social media platforms encourage sharing and self-disclosure. People may feel pressured to share personal information to fit in or maintain social connections. And that sharing or oversharing gets plugged into the algorithm to build your profile. People often blindly trust the companies they interact with online, assuming they will handle their data responsibly. This trust can be misplaced as companies prioritize profit maximization over user privacy. This privacy paradox enables surveillance capitalists to gather vast amounts of data and essentially operate with little resistance. The social pressure aspect of surveillance capitalism is thought by some to contribute to self-censorship by creating an environment where individuals feel constantly monitored and judged. The knowledge that their online activities, communications, and even their emotions are being tracked and analyzed can lead people to alter their behavior, limit their expression, and avoid engaging in activities that might be deemed suspicious or undesirable by unseen algorithms. The pervasive surveillance infrastructure creates a sense of constant observation, leading individuals to second-guess their actions and expressions, discouraging them from expressing dissenting opinions due to a fear of repercussions or social ostracism. Individuals might refrain from participating in protests, joining certain groups, or accessing information on sensitive topics, fearing that such actions could be misinterpreted or used against them. The fear of being profiled and placed into a niche by algorithms can limit individuals' exposure to different viewpoints, hindering open dialogue. The algorithms that power surveillance capitalism are designed to maximize engagement and predict behavior, thus leading to personalized censorship. Algorithms can filter content and limit exposure to information that might challenge one's existing beliefs or prompt critical thinking. They also do social sorting where individuals can be categorized and grouped based on their online behavior, creating echo chambers. More insidiously, algorithms can be used to subtly influence behavior and steer individuals towards certain actions or beliefs that the owners of the algorithm wish to promote. The implication of this self-censorship is that it can undermine the foundations of a healthy democracy. A cornerstone of democracy is freedom of expression, which allows for the open exchange of ideas and the challenging of power. Self-censorship stifles this freedom and limits public discourse. Fear of surveillance can discourage individuals from engaging in political activities, like voting, protesting, or joining political organizations, weakening civic engagement and democratic participation. Self-censorship can lead to a culture of conformity, where individuals are less likely to express dissenting opinions or challenge the status quo. Algorithmic filtering and social sorting can create echo chambers and reinforce existing biases, leading to further polarization and social fragmentation. Proponents of the AI surveillance algorithms often tout them as objective and neutral, but they are only as good as the data they are trained on and may reflect the biases of those who wrote the algorithms. Of course, data collected will reflect existing societal biases of the source data. The algorithms will learn and perpetuate those biases, and in some cases even amplify them. If certain demographics are underrepresented in the training data, the algorithm may not accurately reflect their characteristics or needs. If the data used to train an algorithm contains biased labels or classifications, the algorithm will learn and perpetuate those biases. Also, data reflecting historical inequalities can lead to algorithms that reinforce those inequalities or go in the other direction, making misguided efforts to obfuscate or disregard pertinent historical data. To make matters worse, these biases can be carried forward in a feedback loop. When an algorithm trained on biased data is deployed, it can produce biased outcomes, which can then be used as further training data, creating a loop that reinforces and amplifies the original bias. Critics of surveillance algorithms point out that there's a significant lack of transparency and accountability, especially with newer machine learning-driven ones. Many algorithms are complex and opaque, making it difficult to understand how they arrive at their decisions. This lack of transparency can make it challenging to identify and correct biases. There's also a lack of accountability, since when algorithms produce biased outcomes, it can be difficult to hold anyone accountable, as responsibility may be diffused among data scientists, developers, and the companies deploying the algorithms. So, what are some solutions that have been suggested to address the challenges of surveillance capitalism? First, there needs to be enough public awareness and perhaps even outrage to drive change and demand accountability from tech companies. They depend on complacent attitudes to keep doing business as usual. When complaints reach a boiling point, they'll make changes. Some suggest more robust data protection laws that will grant individuals more control over their data, with limits on data collection and alternative models of data ownership. However, I don't think we can necessarily depend on governments to do a good job of this, since big tech campaign donations, revolving door jobs between government and tech, contract lobbying, and other under-the-table tricks have been used to sway public opinion against regulations. Of course, you should always be proactive and wary about how the data you generate is being used. I try to be myself, although sometimes having convenience gets the better of me. But we need to always be asking ourselves who benefits from this technology and who might be harmed. As our old pal Aristotle was fond of saying, we need to seek the golden mean, maximizing benefits and reducing those risks. Therefore, we need an ongoing conversation that has input from all sides, bringing everyone to the table and making sure the conversation about data and technology is open to everyone and no one, either a demographic or individual, is being taken advantage of. But I ain't holding my breath for that to happen. That's about it for this discussion. Thanks for listening to my ramblings all the way through. And I do recommend reading Shoshana Zuboff's The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, The Fight for a Human Future, The New Frontier of Power, if you want to study more about this topic. For now, you can appease the algorithm by liking and subscribing. Or not, the algorithm knows what you like anyway, right?